Welcome to Lola's Frugal Life Podcast. If you're on a mission to be more frugal with both your time and money, you're in the right place. In this podcast, we talk about topics that help enhance living a frugal lifestyle. The goal is to save time and money where we can so that we can use the rest on what matters most to us. We talk a lot about both time and money management so that we can waste as little as possible on both. We do this while also embracing a progress over perfection mindset. If that sounds good to you, then please stick around for the latest episode right after a few quick words from our sponsor. Hi everyone, welcome back for another episode of Lola's Frugal Life Podcast. Today I am going to talk about the thought that we probably should consider: are we being productive or are we just keeping busy? You ever have one of those days where everything you check off your to-do list gives you this great sense of accomplishment, and then you have those other days that you check off a ton of things on your to-do list, but you don't really feel that great about it? It's kind of like the days you feel great about your accomplishments, you probably had a really productive day. And then on those other days where it didn't feel that great, you probably had a very busy day, but not a very productive day. And the thing is that we kind of use those words interchangeably, like having a really productive day or having a really busy day. And in some ways they can be, because you can be really busy being productive at something. It's kind of like just in the way we use the words, but we don't want to be just busy where we're just doing things and doing lots of things, but they're not the important things. So it's kind of really subjective depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But the thing is that being productive is not the same as just being busy if you're not being you're not being productive on the things that you want to do. So even though you feel like, oh, I worked so hard all day today, but if we're not doing the things that are important to us, even though we were really busy the whole day and we're being held back from being productive, we're not going to have those days where we feel really great about the things that we got done. So we want to make sure that we prioritize what we're working on, because there's so many different things we can do in life, and we don't want to just get involved in keeping ourselves busy all the time. We want to make sure that what we're doing is the most important things and using our time the best that we can. So being productive, it's kind of the way you can kind of judge if you're being productive or just busy is, if you're being productive, you'll start to see progress on the things that are important to you. And those things don't have to be earth-shattering. It can be anything from getting the dishes loaded and into the dishwasher, or planning an upcoming vacation, starting a new exercise routine. This is different from just being busy, because you can be busy all day and not have done anything productive that you really wanted to accomplish at all. When you're productive, you work efficiently and effectively, and you get the tasks done in the least amount of time with the least amount of effort that's required so that you can get the result that you're looking for. If you're just being busy, you might be doing a whole bunch of things, but they weren't really anything that was super important, and you might not even have been doing it in the best way possible because it wasn't your focus that you had really intended on doing that day. So you might not have even kind of thought it through. We can get ourselves busy in so many different ways. You could be busy just like scrolling on your phone when you really needed to be busy getting your dishes done so that you could have that half hour at the end of the day to do something that you value. You could be busy scrubbing a countertop that could have been done during one of your regular cleaning sessions when you really needed to schedule a doctor's appointment. Being busy is not the same as being productive. So in order to make the most out of our time, we want to try and make sure that we are using our time on the productive things that we really want to work on, and then get those other things done kind of in the gaps when we have time to do them. So say, for example, if today's most important task is getting caught up on laundry, tomorrow your most important task might be going out for a walk at your local park. if you just keep yourself busy with things that aren't really important to you, you're not going to have time for those priorities that you would really like to accomplish on any given day. Another thing we really want to kind of look out for when we're trying to make sure that we have really productive days and not just busy days is making sure you don't waste your energy on the easiest items on your to-do list. Do you ever look at your to-do list and just pick some easy stuff because you know it'll get you some quick check marks off of those to-dos? It makes it look like you're getting so much done, and it feels great to check boxes off of your to-do list, or like to check items off or cross them out. But when you have a day that you check off a bunch of very important and meaningful tasks, you feel so much better at the end of the day than when you avoid them and just focus on checking off that easy stuff that you know you can get done really quickly. So you want to try and at least focus your your time that you're at your highest energy. For most people, that's usually at the start of the day, but knowing yourself, you can figure out when that is. But whatever that time is when you're really motivated to jump in, don't jump in and do the easy things. Jump in and do the more challenging things or the more important things, because that's what's going to make you have that great feeling that you had a really productive day. If you just focus on things that are going to get you a quick check off your list because they're easy, you'll be glad that you did them, but you're still not going to feel like you accomplished a whole lot at the end of the day. So it's, sometimes I know it's very tempting to look at our list and we just want to bang out some of those easy things real quick because we figure, well, let's just get those done because we can get them done quickly and get them out of the way, and then we'll focus on the more important stuff later. But what happens is that we wind up using up our best energy getting those easy things done, and then we're often too tired to get the important stuff done later, so then we move it to the next day. We forward it to the next day's list, and then the whole cycle starts over again. We end up writing down the same important things over and over and never getting to them. And when you see those things show up on your list over and over again, it kind of makes you feel a little bit anxious because you're not getting to them, because you're getting all these other little things checked off that are super easy that maybe probably aren't really that super important. So by focusing on at least one or two or even three, if you can, of those important things first when you tackle your to-do list, it will make you feel so much better at the end of the day that you had a really productive day because you accomplished things that were really important to you. I'm sure many of you have seen that Big Rocks example. I don't know what it would actually be referred to as, but it's the Big Rocks example that's kind of made well known by Stephen Covey. Basically, I've seen it on a video, I've seen it demonstrated on pictures or whatever, but basically what it is students are asked to arrange rocks in this jar, and there's big rocks and little rocks and kind of pebbles or whatever. And, they're trying to get the rocks to fit in the jar. And it's a time management exercise example. It's supposed to kind of show how you kind of have to manage your time and your priorities or whatever. And, they're trying to, I think they kind of put all the little stuff in first, and they're trying to fit the big rocks in, and they won't fit. And of course the big rocks are meant to symbolize your big important things that you need to do. And then the little rocks are kind of just all the other stuff that comes around that has to be done also. And in the end, they are shown, I don't remember if they figure it out or if they're shown, but whatever. The idea is that if the big rocks are placed in the jar first, then they were able to pour the little rocks in on top, and it kind of fills in all the gaps. And it's supposed to kind of symbolize that, if you really focus on getting those big things done, the little things will kind of fall into places in the gaps. And that's what we really want to focus on when we're trying to be productive, is really focusing on those really important things and not just keeping busy with the little things, because those little things can usually squeeze in the gaps. That's why we're able to check them off so quickly, because they're usually little things that don't really take that much time and effort. We can do them often, while we're waiting for rice to cook in the microwave, or I don't know, whatever, waiting for water to boil, or, when you maybe have a half an hour before you have to run out and do an errand, you can usually squeeze in those little things, and they often can wait longer too. They're not usually like super urgent, important things that have to be done right away. So if they take a couple of days to get to, then let them take a couple of days to get to. Use that time to get your priorities taken care of, or at least some work on your priorities, so that you feel like you're not just spending your days being busy and not having a good feeling at the end of the day that you made progress on things that were important to you. They often say too that productive people tend to not be so busy because they're really spending their time making sure that the things that they do are being done in the best ways possible. They're always looking for ways to improve the things that they're doing. So being productive is different from being busy, because when you're just busy, you're not necessarily doing what is most important, and you're not likely always doing it in the best way. When you're being productive, you can get your most important tasks done and then move on to something else. One example I kind of thought of that might kind of clarify like the difference between being busy and productive is if you think of it in the situation of working at a job. So say you are say you're working at a job, right? And you're given something that you have to get done that has a tight deadline. If you come to work and spend all day doing like non-urgent emails and making no progress on your important project, from your employer's view, your day was very not productive. From your perspective, you might be thinking, well, yeah, but I got all these emails and I was responding to emails all day long. I was like super busy and I was really productive. I responded to all these people. But your boss is going to think, yeah, but the most important thing was that you needed to be working on this project that has this really tight deadline. So while you felt like you were doing what you should have been doing because you had all these emails to respond to, those were kind of like the busy work because that wasn't the priority for the day. The priority for the day was getting this other assignment done. So I don't know. I thought maybe just kind of putting it in terms like that, because it's kind of hard when it's like our own things, because we're the one that decides like if we're being productive or not, or what we should be working on. But I think sometimes we could just get ourselves hung up on doing things that we feel like we need to do, even though we don't really need to do them right now. They're not most important. Maybe they're just taking up our time that we could be using to do something else, like even relaxing or something else that's more important. So maybe if you kind of think of it in terms of like being at a job and kind of prioritizing your time in that way, like from a perspective of like, well, what would an employer think if they said this was the most important thing and then this is what I wound up working on? They might not be so happy about that. So that's kind of a way you can kind of think of like being productive versus being just busy. Another example that I can think of is say you planned to do the dishes, wipe down the counters, and then you have some important phone calls to make. So after loading the dishes, you notice that there's some fingerprints on the front of the cabinets. Maybe you wipe down the cabinets and then you continue to wipe down all of the cabinets. While standing on a chair, wiping down the cabinets, you notice that the top of the cabinets need to be dusted too. So now you're wiping down the tops of the cabinets. And while you're there, crap, the ceiling fan needs to be dusted too. So now you're doing the ceiling fan. 2 hours later, you have a sparkling kitchen. But you missed the office hours of the doctor's office that you needed to call to make a doctor's appointment. So now you did not get your doctor's appointment made, but your kitchen is done. So were you busy or were you productive? Well, you could say that you were productive because you got all that work done on your kitchen, but really you just made yourself busy with things that really weren't super important that day, and you missed out on doing something that you really wanted to do, which was make a doctor's appointment. So it's kind of this weird line, but it's really about making sure you're not letting other things take over your time so that you can focus on what you really want to do in any given day, because we only have so much time, and by really making sure we're making the most of it and doing the most important things, we can end up with much more time to do the things that we really enjoy in life and not just live our lives being constantly busy. Focusing is super important to being productive and staying on task and not letting ourselves get drifted off into the land of busyness. In order to be productive, it's so important to maintain your focus on what you're trying to accomplish. And in this example that I gave with getting carried away on the kitchen, had you remained focused on what you were trying to accomplish that day, your cabinets might still have fingerprints on them, but you would have scheduled that doctor's appointment that you really wanted to get taken care of. And you'll feel so much better at the end of the day because that was something that was really important to you, and maybe wiping down the cabinets wasn't super important to you. So even though you did things that you felt needed to be done, it wasn't what was really important to you to get done that day. There is always so much to do. If we wanted to, we could keep ourselves busy from early in the morning until really late at night. So it's really important to stay focused on the things that are most important to you each day so that you don't let yourself get distracted by all the other things that can be tempting you along the way that you think need to get done right now. There is so many things that you can tell yourself need to get done today that you can spend forever on doing all these other little miscellaneous things and never getting to what is really important to you. One thing that you can do to try and keep yourself focused on your priorities is having a place to log any things that you need to get done later. So many times we can get distracted from what we're doing because we think we're going to forget to get back to something else. So again, like with this kitchen example where maybe you got distracted because you noticed something and you start wiping it down, and then you go to the next thing, and next thing you know, you're cleaning the fan and you're doing this. If you notice that, oh, it looks like these cabinets really are going to need to get wiped down, I haven't done that in a while, have a place to jot it down. Just make a note. Next time I'm deep cleaning the kitchen, I got to make sure to wipe down all the fronts of the cabinets. By having a place to just jot down those things that you notice while you're doing something else, you can get it out of your mind and move on and stay focused on the task that you're working on, and you don't have to worry about forgetting. Because that's often why we wind up doing things that we didn't plan to do, because we think, if I don't do it right now, I'm not going to remember. And even if you didn't remember, it probably wasn't that important anyway, if you think of it. But it still just feels good to get it written down so that way you could be like, okay, it's on a list. I can move on. Let me get back to what was most important here. So having any place, it could be a notebook, it could be a pad on the fridge, notes app in your phone, just somewhere consistent that you know you will refer back to. And it's somewhere that you feel confident that if I write it down here, I will see it, I will get back to it, and I'll get it done later when I have time, when the time is appropriate to be working on something like that, not when I'm in the middle of some high priority task that I really want to get done. So I guess the main point of this episode, I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. It's really just kind of to think, are you really too busy? We are all very busy. There are all so many things. There are just so many things that we would like to do and that we can do. And there's a never ending list of cleaning and chores and all kinds of things that we would like to get done. But you want to think about, like, are you just staying busy, or are you really accomplishing what's most important to you? Next time something happens that you say, well, I can't do that because I'm too busy, really think about it. Is it something that's really important to you? Can you maybe make time to do those things and not just constantly tell yourself that you're too busy? Because we can kind of get in the habit of making ourselves busy. And I know that there's times in life, and I've been through them too, where we are literally just busy. And it again, it's going back with how we use that word. But even there are times where a number of things that we need to do that are very important can just get a bit overwhelming, and we wind up being busy doing those things all day long that we feel like are really important things to do. So I'm not saying that there aren't those times, but we don't want to be living like that, where we're just constantly busy with something. So if you feel like you're in a place like that and it's not just a temporary like season or something like that you're going through, then really try and think of what are the things that are keeping you so busy that they're keeping you from doing these productive things and things that you really enjoy, so that you can feel good about your days and not just feel like you're barely making it through and you're just busy the whole time. So that's it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. I post the blog post for each episode each week on my website. You can comment there or in our Facebook group or anything like that. So that is it for this week. I will see you back here next week. So thank you for checking in for this podcast episode. And don't forget, you can always email me with any questions or suggestions at lolasfrugallife@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at lolasfrugallife. And you can find a blog post for most of my episodes and definitely all of my meal plan episodes at lolasfrugallife.com. You can also join our private listeners group at facebook.com/groups/lolasfrugallife. And if you enjoy the show, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen from. And I would love it if you would screenshot the show and tag me on Instagram so I could see you're listening. Also, if you can please take a couple of seconds to rate and review the podcast. Those ratings and reviews are what help the show come up better in search results so that other people can find this podcast. So that will really help me in growing my audience. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have an awesome day.